To save money, I rented a spooky house off campus to study for my exams. When I couldn't solve a problem and was chewing on my pen, a voice, frustrated, said, "Choose A." I forced myself to finish the test. That voice coldly evaluated, "Give it up. You have no talent." I whimpered, grabbing onto an imaginary lifeline. "Oh genius spirit, help me out here." During my senior year, prepping for grad school exams, my dorm mates were too noisy at night. I was severely sleep deprived. Because it was cheap, I rented a haunted house off campus to study. At first, I pretended to ward off ghosts with some charm papers, until one late night, as I was dozing off during calculus exercises. A soft-spoken voice said, "Choose A." The voice was quite annoyed. I slowly opened my eyes, wide awake. There was no one around, and the voice didn't come back. I shakily completed the test. But this time, it seemed truly speechless, coldly saying, "Only got 3 multiple-choice questions right, forgot the constant in indefinite integrals, and big questions won't score without proper solutions. Give it up, you have no talent." Each word was like a dagger. I was shattered. Unbelieving, I checked the answers and finally accepted it. Gathering my courage, I shouted into the air, "Oh great genius, help me out, please." The air was silent for a moment before that cold voice returned. "Forget it. If you're my student, I'll have heart problems from stress." I whimpered, crying to the empty room. The genius spirit ended up stuck with me. In its words, it was because it was so bored. The spirit had been in that house a long time. No one dared to live there because it was haunted, so it was bored enough to count the scratches on the floor tiles. Until I, unafraid, moved in. 2 bedrooms and a living room, $200 a month, 1 month deposit and pay 3 months up front. Besides being a haunted house, it had no faults. Besides prep, I had to work part-time at a nearby cafe to earn some living. When I got back from another part-time shift and started on calculus again, the silent genius spirit looked at my test and was amused. "Can't apply things you've learned? Didn't you sort out yesterday's mistakes? Is your IQ just something you got for topping up your phone? Why cry? You took my space, and I can't even vent a bit?" I choked and wiped away my tears. "No, I was just worried you'd given up on me." Sob. Such a harsh tongue, but somehow comforting. For a solid week, under the genius spirit's grilling, I felt like dying each day, but I improved fast. I had always struggled with math. Anything mathematical was a mess for me. After some blow-ups, the genius spirit finally accepted that I was a math disaster. It took a deep breath and started teaching me from the basics of calculus, clearly and concisely, much better than any of my school teachers. Despite seeming grumpy, it was very patient when explaining. But this tutoring wasn't purely out of kindness. The genius spirit plainly said, "They say if someone has unfinished business in life, their soul lingers until it fades away. I'll teach you math. You help me fulfill my wish to leave here successfully." My eyes sparkled as I nodded. But no further words came. I couldn't help it and asked, "What's your name? Where is your family? What's your wish?" I need to confirm its identity to help fulfill its wish. The air chilled, and it simply said with a slight smile, "Don't remember." Well, that simplifies things. This house had witnessed a fatal incident. The landlord should know the details. I messaged the landlord, and she sent back a string of voice messages. "Didn't you say you didn't mind a haunted house? Rent is already $50 cheaper, honey. I'm not lowering it further." No matter how I pestered, she wouldn't reveal anything about the incident, probably worried I'd flee once I knew the details. So, I turned to the internet. The police wouldn't disclose case info, and online, I only found that someone had fallen here a few months back. But details about the victim were scarce and vague. Out of options, I asked the genius spirit, Do you remember anything from life? Like landmarks or famous buildings? It thought hard, hesitantly mentioning. Cherry blossoms? They fell during spring, blowing into my palm. I vaguely remember being in physics competitions. I paused. Not many domestic universities have cherry trees, but I knew one. My first choice for exams, J City University. I decided to start with the competition records. J City University hosted many physics competitions, and with the genius spirit skills, its name should be on some list. I found a list of the last 3 years of physics competition winners on their website and planned to read names to see if one triggered memories. Leo, Felix. The national award for the physics lab competition this year is Leo. Seeing that name made me freeze for a moment. The pause was so long the genius spirit realized something was off. Reading the name from the screen, it asked puzzled. Leo, do you know him? Curiosity might have gotten the better of it, or perhaps it was finally curious after being stuck in the house so long. The spirit gossipily asked me. A friend or someone you like? You've got such a strong reaction even when I scold you, it's rare. I stifled my panic, quickly closed the laptop, rubbed my eyes, and said lightly. I'm sleepy, let's continue tomorrow. I'm warning you, no sneaking into my room. Bear in mind we're both indecent. I closed the door with a bang, missing its last words. Tossing and turning all night, I finally had enough and called the landlord at midnight. She yelled at me for a good 5 minutes, but I didn't mind. I stubbornly asked. Can you tell me the name of that person? The landlord was scared of my persistence and warned me, saying if I called her at such an hour again, I'd better be ready to leave the house. After the call, her yelling still echoed, but I could finally sleep peacefully. The panic faded. Yeah, how could the genius spirit be Leo? How could he inexplicably end up in a remote third-tier small city from J City? I knew it was unfair to doubt a kind ghost teaching me math. But at that moment, my only thought was relief. Thank goodness it wasn't Leo. Leo was my high school desk mate. It said in youth you shouldn't meet overly amazing people. That rings true. Leo was truly exceptional, both his parents were intellectuals. He always outperformed second place by a landslide, and his accomplishments in competitions led to a direct spot in J City University. Despite his excellence, he wasn't a bookworm. Basketball, violin, chess, he excelled in all of it. Everyone thought he was cold and aloof, hard to approach. But I never thought so. He would tutor me in math for an hour every day, patiently answering every question. He'd sneak me tasty snacks and put up with my cluelessness. Once, someone took my math test, and people laughed at me. Even such simple problems, you managed to get wrong. Jenny, maybe you should get your IQ checked at the hospital? I tiptoed, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't reach the paper someone was holding high up. I dug my nails into my palms, trying to stop the tears from falling. Laughter echoed around me. Leo appeared in that embarrassing moment. With a cool look, he effortlessly grabbed the paper from the person's hand and smoothed out its wrinkles. When he saw me struggling to hold back tears, he noticeably hesitated for a moment. His lips slowly curved into a tight line, and his knuckles cracked audibly as he clenched his fist. He shoved the paper back into my arms. Before throwing a punch, Leo casually asked, "You're proud of just being 1 point over the passing score? Well, your confidence is wholesale, your head's only good for height." I got woken up by my academic genius. A restless night left me with only 3 to 4 hours of sleep. When I woke up, the clock was nearing 8, and the academic genius spoke in my ear, "Less than 50 days to the graduate exam, how are you sleeping so soundly at your age?" I got so scared I jumped out of bed. I didn't hear the academic genius knock, nor did I hear him remind me last night about my early class today. In the morning, after knocking for 5 minutes and realizing I wasn't waking up and class time was near, he simply walked through the door and yelled at me until I woke up. I rushed to brush my teeth and wash my face, seeing books, cups, and a scarf occasionally floating past me. Winter was here. He had my books and bag ready. With bread between my teeth and struggling with my shoes, I mumbled half-coherently, "Thanks, Teach, I'll bring you something tasty back tonight." The academic genius couldn't eat human food but enjoyed watching me eat, finding joy in it. Anyone can make promises like this, right? It all goes into my stomach anyway. He chuckled, and I could guess he was leaning against the wall, arms crossed, watching me frantically because his voice sounded so casual. "Since you acknowledge me as your teacher. They say once a teacher, always a father." Confused, I looked up. With a teasing smile, he replied, "Come on, call me Daddy." No way was I acknowledging that nameless spirit squatting in my room as a father. So, I made a face, turned, and bolted out of there. That night, I openly ate fried chicken, crawfish, and barbecue in front of the academic genius. I even detailed how delicious the food was to him. Taunting a ghost backfired on me. I was drenched by a toppled bowl of crawfish as it splashed all over me. Despite his laughs and reassurances that it wasn't his doing, I couldn't help but feel agitated. Being groggy led me to forget clothes for the shower. Torn between showering in dirty clothes again or calling the academic genius for help, I hesitated. Embarrassing for a person or a ghost, that was the real question. Just as I gritted my teeth, reaching for the battle-worn pajamas, a voice echoed eerily, "Oh, figured out what you forgot yet?" I froze for a moment, catching my breath, and in panic, nearly slipped on water. "I thought you promised not to come in." He merely snorted, knocking the frosted glass. Outside, I could faintly see the pajamas floating, and he patiently knocked again. The sound seemed to thud against my heart. He drawled, "Aren't you going to take them?" Finally, feeling a rush of guilt, I slightly opened the door, snatched the clothes, and froze again in shame, banging my head against the wall. I could have just waited for him to leave first. I covered my face, filled with regret, fingertips still faintly burning like they were brushed by his touch. It was like he had dropped a flicker of flame on me. That evening, I uncharacteristically didn't open anything related to math. The genius clicked his tongue beside my desk but stayed silent. After a while, a cold patch appeared on the table out of nowhere. Peering into the mirror, I saw the flush creeping up from my ears to my collarbone. Embarrassment sent steam bursting from my head, and I decisively knocked the mirror down, my face scorching even more. I stiffly tried making excuses, "It's from the bathroom steam." Someone chuckled lightly but said nothing more, although more meds floated into my hand. Looking at them, I forced a smile. "Thanks, you're actually quite thoughtful." He picked up a pen, twirling it airily. "You're welcome." I raised my fist mockingly at the air, seriously considering how to punch a ghost. Thought today would just be another crazy day until the genius again woke me up in the night. This time, I was genuinely a bit angry. What happened to our gentleman's agreement not to enter my room? Before I could speak, he quickly covered my mouth. Sandlot had darkened, likely from a power outage. In a low, short tone, he whispered, "Someone's trying to break in." After some short noises, it went quiet outside. When I moved, I switched locks based on genius advice that he couldn't see beyond this space, couldn't see faces. All around was dark, the quiet chilling, and the door blocked by heavy furniture. Waiting for police help felt endless. Sensing my silence and unease, he suddenly spoke, "Wanna chat?" Hugging my knees in the corner, straining to listen outside, I asked, "About what?" "Math?" My expression complicated, I met his eyes. "Come on, who can focus on that now?" He chuckled softly like he'd already guessed my reaction. Pausing a moment, his voice carried unspeakable emotion, "Then how about Leo?" I stayed silent. After ages, I slowly replied, "Not much to really share, just an average high school lab partner." He was kind. I liked him, so I might have overreacted seeing his name, that's all. Someone like Leo, everyone likes, you know? I'll probably never forget that summer's sweet orange soda, never forget someone once willingly shading me from the sun for half a class, or how he turned to me in the crimson dusk with the breeze lifting his dark hair. Locked in the school that rainy night, he opened the door from outside, panting and soaked, yet not mentioning how long he'd searched. Exhaling, he casually crossed the step, offering his hand with a lazy tone, "Jenny, wanna come with me?" It was like moonlight touched me too. I'd assumed the genius wouldn't ask more, my dodging well seen. But he persistently asked, "And Leo? Did he ever notice you liked him?" This time I stayed quiet for a long time, my voice was kind of hoarse. He gave me a pen. That year, Leo got early admission to college. The day before the exam, he gave me a pen. He promised me that on the afternoon of my last exam, he'd wait for me outside the school. The brains teased, wondering if he was planning to confess. He bluntly commented, "Ugh, it's cliché, so old-fashioned." I shook my head, wrapping my arms around my knees, and slowly lowered my gaze. I wasn't sure. I didn't keep the appointment, I went back on my word. I lied to him. Senior year was the darkest time of my life. My parents died in a car crash caused by a drunk driver who then fled, and they still haven't found him. It was a long struggle, and even the cops subtly suggested I give up. They said I was just a girl in her senior year, and I should focus on school with the money my family saved, that it would make my parents proud from above. But I didn't want to. I'm an only child and my parents adored me. They never let me suffer just because I was a girl. When I was little, I loved hearing their stories. They said I was a gift from Buddha, so they never let me near a temple for fear that Buddha might take me back one day. Back then, kids at school loved giving out nicknames. I cried and asked my parents why they named me Jenny. But they'd pat my head, patiently explaining, "Life is long, and we won't always be around. We hope you meet kindness and hear only good things." They put their love into my name. So I couldn't accept that an accident would take them away forever. In an era before widespread surveillance, finding someone was hard. Really hard. I guess I'm stubborn. Even knowing people might lie about having clues just to get reward money, I'd always meet them full of hope. 2 days before the exam, I met that person for the first time. I'd seen his picture many times, in highway videos and on ID photos. Just one look and I knew it was him. The person lying about clues was him. He'd been on the run, could have changed his name and buried this old case. But he failed. Because of my persistence, my stubbornness. So he used an unknown number to call with fake clues, asking to meet. The fugitive life made him unstable. He approached me menacingly, and if Leo hadn't shown up, I might have died that day. Leo silently took me to report it, tending to my bleeding knee with lips tight in anger. I lightly tugged at his sleeve. He closed his eyes like he was helpless but then seriously met my gaze. "Can you stop risking yourself? Stop getting hurt, stop making me worry." No one can refuse Leo. Every time we met, I'd choose a spot with cameras nearby. Maybe he was crazy for wanting a way out, or maybe living was never in his plan. But the cameras already captured his movements, my persistence wasn't needed anymore. The next day, Leo gave me a pen. Some joked, others were envious, but it was just a regular pen. No note, no confession, no romantic tale. But Leo said, "Jenny, did you know? The tip of a pen can be sharp too." During exams, I couldn't carry a knife for self-defense. But that pen stayed in my pocket the whole time. The morning after my science exam, I never imagined he'd dare act with the exam security tight. That pen stabbed into his left eye even after being shoved into his car. I barely escaped with my life, missing my exam by an hour. Covered in blood, soaked from the rain, I pressed my trembling hand and calmly gave my statement to the police. My phone and bag were lost. The officer told me to move, because the suspect might act again. The officer asked if I was alone at home. I should have a friend accompany me. They were serious about catching him soon. The room was quiet except for the summer cicadas. I could only think of Leo then. The Leo who would search for me in the rain, who would stand in front of a knife for me. I'd never been so scared. Not when I was in the car, nor when I realized I'd missed the exam. But then, I worried about Leo. Would he die? If he stayed with me, would he leave me too, like my parents did? I left the station and bought a ticket out of the city. Didn't matter where. No goodbye, no explanation. I knew Leo wouldn't let me face this alone. So I vanished from his world. The brains was quiet for a long time. I thought he'd comment on fate or call me heartless. But he didn't. With me staring blankly on the floor, a blanket wrapped around me from above. Through it, someone gently hugged me. Warmth returned to my fingers, and finally, I heard him speak softly. Bad luck, wasn't it? So don't be sad. Going back for a report felt familiar. That area had a blackout last night, no footage. Maybe someone entered by mistake. While waiting for a response, someone called to me. A guy who looked like a Taoist blocked my path, dramatically saying, "Miss, you've got some heavy ghostly vibes." Nearby, a cop rolled his eyes, warning him, "Alex, you're pushing it. We brought you in today already. Stop pretending or you're getting locked up." Alex sighed, covering his mouth, turning silent. But he still tried chatting me up. "Miss, have strange things happened at home recently? Like noises, stuff disappearing?" Playing along, I nodded. He stroked his beard, feeling pretty smug as he said, "No need to worry. Even though there's a ghost, it's not a hostile one. It should disappear on its own soon enough. Here, take a look at this talisman. It'll protect your home and keep you safe." But I pushed his hand away, my eyes twinkling as I asked him, "Is there a way to keep the ghost from disappearing too quickly?" He pointed at my nose, stammering, unable to form a coherent sentence. After a while, he sighed with a complex expression. "Life and death are determined by fate. If he's trapped there after death, it means his obsession is there. People and ghosts are on different paths, you should give up." I exchanged contact info with the policewoman assigned to me. She looked like she wanted to say something but just reminded me to contact her if anything unusual happened. I got a new video doorbell and added a few more locks. With my exam prep, I didn't go out much anyway. I figured I'd be alright until exams were over. As I opened the door, the room was pitch black. Staring into the darkness, I suddenly, for no reason, said, "Open sesame, turn on the light." A few seconds later, the light came on. Floating before me were some practice exam papers, and in the distance, there was some heated milk. The warm yellow lights chased away the cold of the wind and snow. Someone was waiting for me all along. The genius waved the papers at me, silently smirking. "Did you drop this gold paper or this silver paper?" I grabbed the papers and couldn't help but smile. I said seriously, "Only kids make choices. I want them all." Life seemed to return to normal after that. There were no more sounds of someone jimmying the door, as if that night was just a figment of my imagination. Until Joan found me again. Joan, the policewoman in charge of my case, felt I looked familiar that night, so she left her contact info with me. Later, she went through the files and finally remembered seeing me before, in a photo. She told me that when the homicide happened in the house I'm living in now, she was one of the investigating officers. There was a wall in the house where my photo appeared, which is why she found me familiar. She suspected that the sound of someone picking the lock that night might not have been a coincidence. After replying to her message, I calmly closed my phone. In the distance, the genius was urging me to eat. Surprisingly, he was a great cook, and I craftily got him to cook me several meals. I wolfed down the food, mumbling, "You're like the ultimate perfect husband and dad." He accepted the compliment with ease, but then, a little smugly, he said, "Really, so you think I'm more practical than someone living in your memories, right?" In silence, I kept my head down and ate, not daring to answer. Lately, he's been acting weird, stopping math lessons halfway to ask if he or Leo was a better teacher, or, when waking me up with breakfast, asking if Leo ever did something sweet like that for me. Each time, he jolts me awake. Seeing me speed up my eating, he casually said, "Take your time, I'm not competing for your food." "Did Leo used to swipe your lunch in the cafeteria?" I choked a bit, almost spitting out my food. He gently patted my back, with a hint of laughter in his voice. After drinking the water he handed me, I wiped away my tears and gave him a silent, accusing look. Life's tough. Eating too much left me unable to sleep. At 1 a.m., staring at the ceiling with frustration, I finally got up, opened the door, and softly called out, "Hey genius, you awake?" He was, though to keep the light from being too glaring, he had just a small lamp on. "Can't sleep?" I nodded, obediently whispering, "I want to hear you teach." We'd covered most of the math. Lately, he'd been summarizing my mistakes. He flipped through the papers and asked, "What do you want to hear?" Without hesitation, I said, "Physics." This surprised him a bit. He never thought I'd bring up physics and slowly said, "I thought you weren't interested in physics." I blinked. "Well, it can be pretty sleep-inducing. I've told you, with a student like you, I'd probably have a heart attack out of frustration." But he still started teaching me physics. From gravity to air resistance, from neutrinos to quantum entanglement. I zoned out by the end, my mind wandering elsewhere. Suddenly, he asked, "Jenny? What are you thinking about now?" I snapped back to reality, pulling the covers over myself, leaving just my eyes visible. I was thinking about Leo. The faint night light felt like a flickering candle in the darkness. That year during a night class, the power went out. While the announcement hadn't been made, everyone was excited in the dark, and the class president handed out candles per table for light. The candle was between Leo and me, and when the wind blew, shadows danced. With my pen in my mouth, I struggled with a problem. As I racked my brain, I heard Leo sigh. "Don't chew on your pen." "Which problem's stumping you?" Quietly, I slid my math book over. This one, and this one," I said, admitting everything. Leo fell silent for a bit. Everyone said he was cold and distant. Afraid of making him angry, I snuck a glance, seeing him gazing down, his face softened by candlelight, his voice soothing. When he paused halfway through explaining, he suddenly asked me, "Jenny, what are you thinking now?" I nervously looked down, blurting, "I'm thinking how I can force myself to love math." I heard Leo chuckle. That night, I was only relieved that the power was out, so he couldn't see my blushing ears. Though maybe it's also regrettable, since he never knew how my hands were clammy with nerves. He didn't realize how much brightness he brought, enough to illuminate someone else's summer. The genius pulled me out from the covers, smirking as he pinched my chin. "No thinking about Leo." There was a playful warning in his voice. With my chin lightly held, I mumbled back, "You're both great teachers, don't be petty." He studied me for a long time, long enough that I felt nervous, long enough to scare me a little. Eventually, he decided to let it go. Tucking me into bed snugly, he finally asked, "So, did you want to go to J City University because of him too?" Thinking it over, I replied, "Kind of. We promised to go to J City University together. But because I missed the English score, I didn't get there. Yet, J City's chemistry is top-notch, so it's not all about Leo." In high school, I saw the cherry blossom rain experiment. The precipitate formed when cobalt chloride met sodium hydroxide solution was like a sweeping cherry blossom rain. I asked Leo, "Have you ever seen cherry blossoms?" He shook his head and looked up, the fragmented light reflecting in his dark pupils. He tilted his head and looked at me for a while, then gave a slight smile. He said, "Jenny, I know you want to get into J City University. I'll be going to J City University too. In September, would you like to see the cherry blossoms with me?" I stood there, stunned, unable to process what he just said. After a while, I dumbly said, "There are no cherry blossoms in September." Leo turned his head away, pursing his lips in frustration. As I drifted off into a hazy sleep, I felt someone gently touch my hair. It seemed I heard him softly saying, "Sleep, don't be scared. I'm here." Before I knew it, it was the day before the written test. Since the test center wasn't near the school, I booked a hotel and started packing my luggage in a rush. While I busied myself, I realized that deep down, I was reluctant to leave. Before heading out, I called Leo over, asking him to stand in front of me. I clasped my hands, closed my eyes, and made a wish to him, "Leo, bless me with smooth sailing in this exam." Every time before an exam in high school, I would make a wish to Leo without fail, and it always worked. Except for that one time, the day before the college entrance exam, when a boy who had once snatched my test paper and mocked me interrupted my wish. His ears were a bit red as he said, "Jenny, I like you. I hope you do great in the exams." Because of the interruption, the wish didn't work. The missing marks in one subject meant I could only attend an ordinary college. Lacking research conditions and guaranteed spots for graduate school, I avoided meaningless social activities and buried myself in the library, becoming the odd one out. In the end, I couldn't handle the late-night disturbances from my roommates and moved to this notorious house, where I met Leo. Someone wiped away my tears. Leo clicked his tongue softly and said, "Why are you crying?" I opened my eyes, vision blurred with tears, but there's only emptiness in front of me. I heard Leo's voice, lazy and casual, "Don't worry, you'll pass this test just fine under my protection, Jenny." 2 days flew by. The test went really well. My weak point was math, but surprisingly, I managed it smoothly. As the sun set, snowflakes began to fall, reminiscent of the stormy rain from the college exams day. At the street corner, someone appeared. He had a scar over his left eye, wearing an old black coat, his expression hard to see in the backlight. Step by step, he walked toward me through the snow. I released my grip on my backpack and asked, tilting my head, "Did you know? I've been waiting for you a long time. Maybe this should have been settled 4 years ago." The driver who committed a hit and run, the assailant who kidnapped me out of revenge 4 years ago, disappeared, vanishing from the world. But he never gave up looking for me. Now, he found me. And I found him. As he got closer, I suddenly asked, "Why hide in that neighborhood near the school? You could have waited to kill me. Yet, why commit a crime in that house, faking it as a fall to attract police attention?" He chuckled darkly, "You want to know about him, don't you? I remember him. 4 years ago, in that storm, he saved you. Otherwise, you would have died by my hand then. This time too, if he hadn't shown up suddenly, you would have died on June 15th. My eyelashes trembled. June 15th was my parents' death anniversary. No paper offerings could be burned at school. I had exams throughout that day. In the end, as evening fell, I left the school. When Joan and the police came, I was standing there, blood soaked under the streetlight, snowflakes falling like stars. The man lay dying in the snow, no more room for resistance after the police cuffed him. Joan told me sternly, "You need to get a medical examination for your injuries." I smiled, shaking my head, showing my arms horrific wound. I checked, this counts as self-defense. No criminal responsibility. Who I am today, that's what Leo gave me. So, I won't ruin myself. She knew everything that happened to me. That man once hid in that house, plastering its walls with my photos to plot my murder, stopped only by Leo's appearance. The moment I ran into that man, I called Joan. I waited long for this day. Imagined countless times what weapon he might use, which foot he'd step forward with first, and how he would appear before me. In the past 4 years, not a single day passed without preparation. I learned boxing, studied martial arts, and the only club I joined in college was the martial arts one. When teaching fell short, I saved every penny to take classes. The most exhausting times had me lying on the floor from a beating, every nerve hurting. But I got up, gritting my teeth, working part-time outside. 4 years ago, pursuing the perpetrator with a stubborn zeal nearly cost me my life, outmatched in power. Such fatal mistakes I won't make a second time. Joan looked at me, her expression complex, not speaking for a long time as she watched my retreating form. The wind howled in my ears as I sped up my steps, running till I panted, till my heart raced out of control, back to that accursed house everyone deemed unfortunate. I wanted to see Leo. Now, right now. But as I pushed open the door, only silence greeted me in the darkness. Tentatively, I called, "Leo?" Nothing but emptiness, no one answered. My voice trembling, hot tears falling uncontrollably from my eyes, "Leo, are you still here?" Leo left me once more. No voice would answer, nor would there be a light kept on for me in the night. The whole 3 years of tutoring during high school, his prideful offhand remarks, his harsh words with a soft heart. I made wishes to him every time for 3 whole years. Each time, Leo responded with a smile. "Don't worry, I'll make sure the test goes smoothly for you, Jenny." So, how could I not recognize him? I fooled myself into thinking everything could stay buried, believing we still had endless time together. Someone risked themselves to save me over and over again. I covered my eyes, but the tears wouldn't stop, falling through my fingers. On such a typical snowy night, some are reborn, some fade away. But the only thing I know for sure is that Leo, one more time, has vanished from my life completely. As I reached the balcony, Joan grabbed me from behind. She looked worried and then sighed with relief. "I got your message saying you didn't want to be alone. I'm glad I came. Why are you crying like this? Can you talk to me about it?" I froze. I never sent her that message, but I knew who did. Leo. I pulled away from her hand and frantically searched the house, trying to find any trace that Leo was still here. Eventually, I saw the glowing computer screen. I had been gone for 2 days. I left Leo the only way to contact me. The conversation was left open with Joan. "Hey, can you come to my house for a bit? Don't leave her alone. Please." The time was 20 minutes ago. I was on my way home. I was shaking, recalling what the academic genius once said. They say if someone has unfinished business before they die, their soul will wander the earth day after day, until they vanish. You teach me math, and I'll grant my wish. Let me leave here successfully. What wish could it be? For me to pass my exams? Catch the killer so I won't be in danger? I had no clue. The wind lifted a piece of paper on the desk, the handwriting was strange yet familiar. I nearly lost it grabbing the paper. At the end of the letter, it read, "The universe is expanding, the fireworks fade far faster than the speed of light. We will eventually become eternal in the universe. Loving you is like 1,000 springs and clear skies. In short, don't be afraid. Because we'll meet again." I thought back to that evening in senior year, when he took me to the playground for the evening breeze. The place was noisy, many people jogging around the field, a distant muffled noise in the sky, and fireworks blooming and fading in the air. I asked about the speed of disappearing fireworks, and he slightly tilted his head and said it was the speed of light. We watched the full fireworks display in that breeze. On our way back to the classroom, I deliberately lagged behind him to openly gaze at his profile. But the young man turned, the evening breeze lifting his shirt hem. He squinted his eyes and looked back at me in the light. He said, "Jenny, keep moving forward." Leo's epilogue. Jenny always thought they first met at the start of high school. But that wasn't true. Leo had seen her when they were much younger. Back then, he attended all sorts of tutoring and training. In everyone's eyes, he was the golden boy, the child every parent wished they had. He didn't have any close friends because he was always compared to others, and eventually, the neighborhood kids didn't like him. Those kids would laugh and play, while he remained a silent loner, cold-shouldered and isolated, just pressing his lips together and standing aside. When he was pushed into the sandbox in embarrassment, he could hear his parents nagging in his ears. They wanted him to stand out, to be well-rounded. But he thought he could use that time to solve a few more problems. But that was the first time he saw Jenny. She squatted in front of him, handing him a band-aid. He only remembered her hand was warm, and under the blazing sun, she earnestly met his eyes. "Don't be afraid, we can fight back together." Much later on, Leo started keeping a journal. This was the first entry. Then he moved away. Time passed, maybe just a few years, yet it felt long to him. He saw her again in the alley where stray cats often appeared. To briefly escape his dull life, he'd sometimes take a detour to the alley to feed the cats. One day, by the makeshift cat shelter, there was a sign, "Don't feed cat treats to the strays. Cats will become picky eaters." Leo stared at that cardboard for a long time, turned back with the treats he brought. Next time, he came with cat food and canned food, only to see someone squatting by the cat nook. The sunset lit up her profile, and under her touch, the cautious and wary cat squinted, seeming comfortable and docile. He thought, perhaps he knew who the owner of that sign was. This was the second page of his journal. It wasn't long before high school started. With his new desk mate next to him, he understood what destiny meant for the first time. Everyone said he was cold and distant, hard to approach. She hesitantly glanced at him before focusing back on her math problems. But he didn't want that. He didn't want her to be scared to get close. He didn't want her looking at him like a stranger. He didn't want them to be just ordinary classmates. He lowered his eyelashes, quietly saying, "Draw an auxiliary line from that point." In a few words, she suddenly understood. When she looked up again, her eyes were sparkling. She turned her face, suddenly saying, "Academic genius, let's get to know each other. I'm Jenny." He faintly curved his eyes. And he thought, "I knew. A long time ago, I wanted to know you." Later, the journal got page after page. Someone in the class gave Jenny a hard time, locking her in the classroom on a stormy day. He searched for a long time until he found her at school. Water dripped down from his hair. He was actually so cold he was a bit dizzy. But he just sneaked off the rainwater from his palm and reached out to her in the thunder. Just like he did years ago. "Jenny, do you want to come with me?" Later, he found that guy. The one who took her test paper and locked her in the classroom. That guy was furious and sarcastically asked him, "What's your relationship with her? What gives you the right to get involved in my business with her?" The skinny and tall boy tightened his jaw, eyes cold, and glanced at him. What was his relationship with Jenny? It was the kind of relationship where you played house as mom and dad even when you didn't understand what liking someone meant. It was the relationship where he had plotted for so long to finally know her. It was the kind of relationship where he liked her and wouldn't let anyone bully her. A long time ago, he didn't know what liking someone meant. But now he understood. Liking someone is about falling in love with the same person again and again, without hesitation. But he still lost Jenny. She had an accident before the last exam of the college entrance test. He looked for her for a long time and finally found out where she went by helping a teacher organize files. A very ordinary school in the south. Another city 974. 7 kilometers away from J City. That's quite a distance, nearly 9 hours by train. Sometimes he would buy a ticket to her city. His diary began to fill with train and plane tickets. Sometimes he would catch a glimpse of her, sometimes he wouldn't. Sometimes he wondered if she was still mad at him. He knew she might be in danger and had promised to wait for her downstairs at her place. But that noon, it stormed. He went back home for an umbrella. Just 2 minutes, and she was gone. Years passed by in a blink. He unexpectedly ran into the guy who had once destroyed Jenny's life. During the altercation, a knife went into his chest. As his consciousness began to blur, he remembered that September, when school started, cherry blossoms fell with the rain, landing in his palm. The faint warmth made the cherry blossoms bloom again, swaying gently in the breeze, petals softly falling. Just like the first time he saw her. Brief but brilliant. He wanted to tell her that yes, even in September, cherry blossoms can bloom. But he never got the chance to say it. During the period when he was a school genius, he was trapped in that house, memories hazy, drifting in and out. Until the last day, when Jenny went to take her exam, he suddenly remembered everything from his life. Remembered as the school genius, he would occasionally mock his former self. Leo was at a loss for words. He had thought regaining his memories was a blessing, but it wasn't. He started to disappear gradually. He saw shared messages on the computer. Saw Joan saying she was already on her way. He knew his wish had come true. So, he had to leave too. Before leaving, he did only 2 things. First, in Jenny's voice, he asked Joan to take care of her that night. Don't leave her alone. Don't let her do anything foolish. Please. Second, he left Jenny a letter. He didn't know if she realized it was him, but he thought, Jenny's so smart, she must have figured it out right away. Many years ago, after the fireworks ended, he said to the slightly dazed Jenny, Jenny, move forward. Back then, he meant, Jenny, come to me. Many years later, he finally said those words again. But this time, he meant, Jenny, move forward. And leave me in the past. Leo opened his eyes. The cicadas were chirping non-stop, a piercing hum in his ears. He frowned, irritated, but saw the wind blowing through the sycamore leaves outside the window, casting a dappled shadow on the desk. A faint pain in his heart. His gaze fell on the calendar on the desk. It showed June 4th, 4 years ago, 3 days before the college entrance exam. He suddenly closed his eyes. Then, ignoring the pain all over, he stumbled through alleys, finally arriving below Jenny's building. His heart pounding, breath ragged, he bent over, hands on knees, when he heard someone question in surprise, Leo, what are you doing here? He looked up. There she was, standing on the stairs, clutching her backpack straps tightly. Their eyes met and locked. And this time, he wouldn't let her go.